actually cut off and go to the next video. Okay, so we're here in the next video. All right, so we're now in chapter 2, Genesis chapter 2, on day 1 of our Bible study. Okay, so when we start reading there, we get down to verse 3, and we see that God has finished his work and he's resting. He's really, really clear why he's resting, and that's why we have a Sabbath rest, is we're to do what he's supposed to do. And or I'll put it this way. When we get that as a command, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Some people say that means that you cannot even lift a finger, anything towards work. I think that's a stretch, personally. You pray about it. I know that people can be legalistic about it, and I know that when people try to take things seriously, sometimes they can stretch the meaning of it. I think you really have to pray and ask God, God, did you really mean we can't work at all? Or like we can't even work in the garden if it relaxes us versus it's work to make food? Does it mean, what exactly does it mean? And I think what it means is when you remember the Sabbath, you remember what's happening right here. And you keep it holy. Well, you don't make it holy. So what does that mean? He made it holy. So look in verse 2. It says, so he rested from his work. When he'd finished his work, he rested from it. And God blessed the seventh day. And he declared it holy. That's how it got holy. He made it holy. Because, why? It was the day when he rested from his work. Now here's what I would say where we get the rule of resting on Sunday. There is a time to quit trying to make money. I'm not saying if you have to work that you shouldn't ask your employer, can I have a separate day off? If I'm going to work someday, can I have Monday off or Saturday off? Or sometime that you yourself, between you and God, will switch your focus from work to resting in the Lord that day. And what does resting in the Lord mean? Well, it means that we are going to rest from focusing on work and the things that of work that we have to do. God was working, but then he was finished and he rested, and he called it holy to rest. Does that mean that women can't make a wonderful meal for their family? Of course you can make a meal for your family. But because it is work, it really is work, y'all. Some people, it is their absolute joy. So if that's what you do and it's a form of rest for you to make a pie or to bake some chicken or something like that, fine. This is all my own opinion. But if you feel like it's really work and you're going to be less restful and less focused on God, then get the meal done. Make a casserole the night before for Sundays. Or fry up some chicken and just heat it in the oven the next day. Whatever you need to do to make sure that there is a day, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, that you do not work. You do not focus on work, whether it's housework, homework, work. And when I say homework, kids, if there's any kids listening, if you didn't get your homework done, then yes, you have to get your homework done. We have to pace ourselves, is what God is saying. He's saying, I made you to not be infinitely working. I want you to rest. And when you rest, I want you to focus on me. That's why when you rest on Sunday, there is certainly nothing wrong with being in the Word of God. That is joy. That is not work. So when I've heard people say, well, you can't do that because that's a form of work. It's like, who are you to define the form of work? Work is when you take your focus off of God. And it is necessary in the world, certainly now, financially. And also, I think each one of us needs to have a sense of doing some good work. For those of you who may be retired or cannot physically work, there's still things that you can do that are purposeful. And you need to pray about that. If you want to, comment below and we can pray about that for you or with you. All right, so let's keep going. He made the day holy. He told us to rest. And if God rested, well, we're not above resting if our own God who made us rested. Okay, that's the bottom line. All right, so that's the first account of creation, and it tells us that. It says in verse 4, it says, this is the account of the creation and of the heavens and the earth. And then we go into the man and the woman in Eden. This, so that you don't get confused, is a recount. And as we go through this Bible, we will see some books that can be a little confusing at times, and I don't pretend to be just a whiz on all of this. It can be confusing when you are hearing the story or you're hearing a recount of the story. And so it'll appear to shift, or maybe you'll get more or less details. That does not mean it's a different story. It's the same. God is helping us to have angles and meaning in history of what's happening. So here we see when the Lord made the heavens and the earth, neither wild plants nor grains were growing on the earth. It's like, wait a minute, he just made them. It's like he's now talking to you about it. He's not making them again. He's talking about what he just, remember we had an account of how it was all created. Now we're talking about the creation. For the Lord had not yet sent rain to the earth. So remember when he divided the water below and he had the water above? That was not falling down.